Hey, welcome for class this morning. We're going to be focusing on the Kapha dosha because we're in the Kapha season here in Portland, Oregon. We're also practicing in the Pitta time of day. So it's a Pitta window of the day for this particular practice. It's 10 a.m. here in Portland, Oregon. So in this practice, I'm going to be talking to students through a process of balancing their doshas. Part of the methodology in Amrita Yoga is that we interweave Ayurveda and yoga together, the classical teachings of yoga, also neoclassical teachings of yoga with Ayurveda, and then contemporary brain science is also mixed in here. So as you go forward in the class, of course, leave any comments or questions below the video. And as always, it's really helpful if you subscribe to the channel or hit the like button for any videos that work well for you. That gives me feedback about what else I can provide for you. And also know that this is a teacher training class that's happening here. The students who are in this class with me, who you won't see because they're not on screen, only my video is portrayed, but they're learning teacher training skills by watching the class, by participating in the class. And if yoga teacher training interests you, leave us a message about that too. We'd be glad to hear from you. Hey, enjoy your practice. Thank you so much. So welcome for morning practice. I'm glad to see all of you. We're practicing at 10 a.m. in Portland in the Kapha season, because now we're well into Kapha season. For those who haven't recognized it, like the daffodils are now blooming, and we've had that changeable weather that comes in the month of March, where Vata and Kapha are overlapping, and then we've also got plenty of mud to notice our footprints in, check and see if we're placing our feet evenly on the ground, because we see part of a footprint and some other part is crooked, like at the beach when you see, oh, I don't put my outer heel down very much. So we're in the Kapha season, and yet this class is at 10 a.m., which is the Pitta time of day. So we get to play with the energies of Kapha and Pitta in this, and hopefully to bring a sense of balance down to all three doshas, to be grounded and centered. So let's start by just sitting comfortably together, and I'll ask you to rest your hands in your lap. You're welcome to close your eyes if you prefer that for meditation. And drop into your body so that you could sense, like, even in your own body, there would be a knowing that you are in this transitional season between two doshas. You can see how your body already knows this from the inside. And as you check inside, you can also ask yourself, not just reflecting on what your body knows about the seasonal transition, but check in to see if you feel like your prana is organized. Does your energy feel organized to you? You might notice that there are areas in the body of greater energy and maybe some areas where things are a little bit dull. Perhaps you have an overall sense of it being pretty balanced right now. And then start to deepen your breath so you can sense, perhaps even more intimately than just from the mind, the breath can act like a little submarine going down into the body and can do some research, like a research submarine in the ocean. What does your body want you to know about the low abdomen or the inner belly, the upper belly, the mid-torso? And perhaps You discover some feeling in the heart. So this submarine that I'm referring to doesn't come with any judgment, and it's not there to criticize, to be curious about what are you sensing inside. As you work with the breath here, start noticing the qualities of the breath. So at first, the breath is like a submarine. It's researching, and you've gotten a sense of the inner landscape of the physical body. Now notice what's happening with the breath body. Does your breath feel smooth, unctuous? That would be a beneficial experience for the kapha dosha. Does the breath feel sharp or urgent anywhere, which might reflect your pitta dosha? Could be a little bit out of balance. Do you feel any bit breathless, short of breath, or the mind is too distracted to notice the breath? In that case, your vata dosha might be dominant right now. One of the risks with the kapha dosha is that things feel sluggish. So if you notice that in the breath, that would be like a little insight for you about your dosha, the balance of your prana and your doshas right now. Okay, good. And then please raise your hands to your heart. And in this practice, may we study well, may we discover what we need to discover, may we be respectful with our bodies and learn from them what they need us to learn. May we never feel impatient with ourselves or our body along the way. We'll chant Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu. Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Savidyam Karava Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidveshavai. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Savidyam Karava Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidveshavai. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Savidyam Karava Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Ma Vidveshavai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om. You may bow your head to your heart and release your hands. Please open your eyes. So this class is specifically going to be based on the methodology that we call Amrita Yoga, where we're combining Ayurveda, classical yoga, and also understanding the nervous system and how it works. And so much of what yoga and Ayurveda have understood about our subtle body and even our dense body, the nervous system, is really just being verified by contemporary neuroscience today. So a lot of what we learn about the gut-brain axis, for example, yogis already knew that, and they had the technology to work with the nervous system and the subtle body too. So it's a kind of intersection of those things, a masala of sorts. A masala means a blend of spices, so it's a blend of those things. So when we think about kapha dosha, its home is in the chest and lungs. Okay, that's its seat in the body. Of course, it nourishes the whole body, but its seat is here. Pitta is in the stomach and the small intestine, and vata is in the colon. So chest congestion, heart congestion, feeling heavy-hearted, having emotions that make the heart feel heavy or burdened, or grief, unresolved grief that lives in the chest or the lungs, the unresolved sorrows that we feel are stored, at least in the memory form, they're stored down in the region of the second chakra, under the water, under the surface of the water of our awareness. But the emotions of uncried tears or uncried grief also can affect the lungs and this kapha dosha. Having excess, let's say, when you have COVID and you've had excess fluid in the lungs, that's also a kapha condition. And this experience of kapha dosha from the chest and the heart region, we want that to be able to spread evenly out through the whole body. So our body is unctuous and supple and nourished by it. So to support that, in this class, we're in pitta time of day, so we get a chance to be a little bit more heating, and we want to be able to warm up and stretch and open the chest and the heart. Along the way, we're going to look at how to be more, in the kapha dosha, how to be more stable, because it's one of the doshas that helps us to feel most stable is kapha. It also gives us stamina, which we need, stamina and like a steady pace. I like to say on every team in your office, in your business, you need somebody who has the kapha dosha. Not all pittas, not all vatas for sure. That'd be hard to get anything done, but we need the kapha person to be helping with the stamina. So that being said, please come up to standing. You can set your blanket aside if you like. When you come up to stand, you're going to need a wall spot, which I'll use the wall behind me. You can use whatever wall spot you have available. Okay. And so what we're going to be doing, let me pretend that this is a wall in front of me so you can see what it will look like, because when I turn, you will not be able to see as well from behind. So you'll put one hand up on the wall sideways. So I'm facing a wall right now. This is my wall. I'm miming it. And when you place the hand up on the wall sideways, you're then going to be turning your feet, shins, knees, then you turn the hips, then you turn the chest and the heart. And in this turning process, the shoulder is not lurching towards the wall. It's going to stay, we say it's going to stay back. Okay, so let's face the wall, and please place your right hand up on the wall sideways. Point your fingers out to the right. Set your right shoulder back a little bit, and then turn your feet, turn your shins, turn your knees, turn your hips. Let's root the tailbone so there's a sense of stability from your hips to your heels. And then lift your inner body, lift your chest and your heart, float the collarbones up. Lift the crown of your skull so there's a sense that your head floats on top of your spine. And if you like, you can close your eyes and try to go inside like that submarine, asking, well, how is energy being invited to move right now? What do you sense about the balance of prana in this pose? Where do you have aliveness? Where is there any sense of dullness? With an exhale breath, rotate your head towards the wall, turn your shoulders, turn your ribs, your hips, your knees, your feet. Let the right arm dangle down, and notice, if you can close the eyes, you're in your submarine. What can you sense there? In your yoga submarine, what do you sense as movement down your arm? And then take your left hand up on the wall. As you place your left hand up, set your left shoulder back, and then turn your feet, turn your knees, turn your hips, drop the tailbone down, rotate across the abdomen so long as your left shoulder is not popping forward towards the wall. Keep that rolled back. Lift your heart, lift the crown of your skull. And consider closing your eyes to drop in again. So one part of you when you're on your yoga mat is like a research scientist. And today that scientist is in a little submarine going inside. As you breathe perhaps more deeply into the pelvis or the abdomen, what do you notice in terms of how prana is moved by the breath? And with an exhale, rotate your head back to center, rotate your shoulders, turn your heart, turn your hips, turn your feet and knees, and then let the left arm dangle again. So you're just going to notice what is happening energetically now. So we're going to repeat that. And this time when you take your hand up, I'm going to ask you to spread the fingers, squeeze the fingers, spread the fingers, squeeze the fingers. So keep the heel of your hand on the wall. With this movement, you may even choose like one finger, you're going to move it quite a bit more. The reason being that you'll be inspired by your own body experience. What happens when you stretch the hand or make a fist? You're going to be nerve gliding. So you're going to get some information about nerves in your neck, in your shoulder, and down your arm. Okay, so let's place the right hand up on the wall. And again, stabilize your shoulder, turn your feet, turn your shins and knees, rotate your hips and the belly. And you come into the place where your shoulder has not pushed forward towards the wall. You may not turn as far as I'm turning, and that's going to be okay. Now, spread your fingers wide. Pull the fingers away from the wall so the heel of the hand is on the wall. Squeeze your hand into a fist. Open the fingers, maybe play with the fingers to see if you move one or the other. Is there something more dynamic or dramatic that you sense? Pull your fingers away from the wall. Make a fist. Spread the fingers out again. Place them back on the wall. And then let's rotate and turn. Lower your right arm. Take notice what's happening energetically. Your submarine might go down into your right arm and fingers. And then place your left hand up on the wall. Again, set the shoulder so it's very stable. Turn your feet, your shins, your knees, your thighs, turn your hips. Lift up through your heart. And then as you press the heel of your hand against the wall, pull the fingers and the palm of your hand away from the wall. Make adjustments if you need to. If the sensations are very strong and you find you're holding your breath, please back off from the pose a little bit. As you squeeze your fingers into a fist, notice if anything changes with your breathing when you do that. And spread the fingers open. And then you can play with one finger or another and see what sensations are there. And then curl your fingers into a fist again. Breathe in. And stretch the fingers out one more time and pull your fingers and your palm away from the wall. So the heel of the hand is fixed there. And then exhale and go ahead and place your hand against the wall. Turn your head, turn your shoulders, turn your torso, hips, knees, and feet. And then notice again what's happening. You take your little submarine down your arm. So in that process, each time that we're noticing, we're building the ability to notice and to connect, just like those who discovered the subtle body in yoga and in Ayurveda. They were mentally still enough and had enough acuity and intuition to sense what was happening with their inner body. We now might read a text or learn from somebody on YouTube or have a class somewhere, and then we try to put that into our life, which is wonderful. But we're learning from the outside in that case. And yet these ancient wisdom holders, they learn from the inside out. We're going to keep going inside to sense what can we learn. Okay, take a wide stance, please. Okay, reach back and interlace your fingers. As you clasp the hands behind your back, roll your shoulders open, squeeze them back, and then squeeze the arms back. So you're separating your arms or reaching back away from your torso. And as you squeeze the arms back, root your tailbone down. Let the hips come slightly forward so they're in line with your toes. Raise up with your chest and your heart. Please open your throat. And then exhale and come forward and down. And as you come down, keep the hands clasped. Let them go overhead towards the space beyond your yoga mat. Notice that your head is lower than your heart. What changes with circulation? What do you notice on the inside, in the inner body? So welcome your breathing to become smoother, a little silkier. Keep the shoulders and the arms energized. You've got some stamina required there. But keep the breath very nourishing so you can have your research scientists go inside, maybe inside the inner belly, what's happening there, or the backs or the sides of the waist. Of course, your legs are also stretching. I'm not denying that, but let's take our interest to the inner body where the sources of prana and the 5 winds, the 5 forms of prana, move about. Now with your next inhale, start raising the base of your skull, the back of your shoulders, your arms, your torso. Rise up to standing. Release the clasp of the hands and let them dangle. Let's go heel toe, the mountain pose. And see if you can stand really still and just imagine you're investigating the inner world like a submarine learning about the inside of the ocean. And see if there's the possibility that your mind is any bit more still or your body any bit more, let's say, organized energetically. Okay, take the arms in front, wrap your right elbow over your left elbow, weave the arms around. Okay, on the inhale, raise the elbows up. So it's going up with inhale and down with the exhale. So inhale, raise up with your breath cycle. Sorry, you can't see my face. Exhale, come down and raise the crown of your skull up even as the elbows come down. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, draw down. Let's do that again. Inhale up. And exhale down. Now with the elbows down, tip your hands to your right. And that's going to tip your right shoulder blade. And as it tips on your upper back, it's turning. Let's say it's turning, it's going clockwise. As it's doing that, drop your left ear towards your left shoulder. As you breathe in, just picture that you're nourishing your body with the breath. And exhale, raise your head to center, raise your forearms to center. And now let's release like this. Inhale, arms down, wide and up. Notice how your right arm feels relative to your left. Exhale, float your arms down and give that a moment of research. Connect and reflect right there. You're balancing the prana in your body. So let's take the left arm out over the right arm. Weave. Okay, this is the top half of eagle pose, called Garudasana in Sanskrit. Inhale, raise your elbows up. Exhale, snug them down. Inhale, raise up. And go slow so you're synchronizing. We're never coercing the body to go at a certain pace. We want the breath to be long and smooth, and the movements of the body can match that. Exhale, come down, and this time as you squeeze down, stay in the down position and tip your elbows to your right and your hands to your left. That's going to rotate your left shoulder blade on your upper back. And it's going to rotate it counterclockwise. Up your right ear towards your right shoulder. And keep the chin a little bit in towards your throat. Allow the breath to be nourishing and kind. There's no particular urgency going on here. You can tell your pitta dosha, hey, we're going to meet your needs, don't worry. So we're just releasing some kapha here. Some held stagnation in the chest, the shoulders, the neck. Let's come up to center. And then again, we're going to release like this. Inhale your arms down, wide and up. And then exhale, float your arms down and take notice when the arms come down, how left arm and right arm feel together, or how they feel unique left to right. Okay, and come into a wide stance one more time. So those practices are to help us release some excess tension or holding in the body. And whenever there's a place of trapped prana, I like to call it that, when there's a place of trapped prana, it's also holding an emotion. It's holding a moment in time. It's holding a stress reaction. And it's holding that. It's kind of like wrapping it time and time. And so you've got these places of residue in the body where we're holding emotions. We're also trapping our vitality and our prana. So we're releasing this in the kapha region of the chest and heart, but it's going to benefit the whole system. Okay, so please come down to a standing wide leg forward bend. Walk your hands forward. And now keeping the right fingertips forward, of course, energize your legs and stabilize from your hips to your heels. But with the right arm forward, take your left arm under and across to hold your right ankle or your right shin or your tights. If you've got to hold on to something, you could pull on your pants if you needed to. You could put a strap around your ankle to hold on to with your hand. But as you hold, begin to twist to your right. And I'm going to ask you to twist to the right, but lean back into your shoulder blades. And encourage the Ujjayi breath to come in and to broaden across the back of your waist. And notice if you're able to exhale thoughtfully without straining, but can you exhale and sense the inner belly? And with your next exhale, rotate back to face towards the floor. Walk your left fingertips forward. Bring your right arm under and through. And as we're twisting to the left, lean back into your shoulder blades. So don't pull yourself forward towards the twist, but rather lean back into your shoulder blades. Broaden the back hemisphere of your body. In this process, again, the breath ought to be smooth and comfortable. And you can also notice if you're able to, exhale and connect to the inner belly. And then with your next exhale, release your right hand back out next to your left hand. Place your palms firmly on the floor. Walk your feet back and step into downward facing dog pose. So in downward dog pose, the length of your dog pose is about the length of your plank pose. If you want to double check that, you can come forward to your plank and then check that that is your dog pose. Just for now, you can always have a shorter or longer dog pose at other times. And then from dog pose, please bring your knees down to the floor. And let's drop back to child's pose. In this child's pose, we'll put the arms out in front so they kind of go to a position we call pranam. Relax the weight of your head. Now, if your head does not comfortably reach the floor, please put a blanket or a block or a support for your head to be there. And then walk your hands back towards your knees and come to kneeling. Or any version of sitting that's comfortable for you. Come to kneeling if you can. Close your eyes. As you drop in to your inner submarine, just take notice of how the last 20 minutes of movement, really about 15 minutes of movement, how has that influenced the organization of prana in your body? Okay, and based on like connecting inwardly and reflecting on that, listen if there's any direction from your body about what might be needed in your life. Where do you have to make like a little update on, let's say, what you're eating, how you're sleeping, how often do you come to your yoga mat? Is there any requested update from your body? Okay, and then let's put a blanket nearby, near enough to reach. And 2 blocks at the top of your mat, please. I have the possibility of knocking that over, so I'm going to move it out of the way. Okay, please come up to standing and place your blocks so that they're going to be wide enough to step into the place between the 2 blocks for Surya Namaskar. Join your palms together at your heart. And in the strength of your body, as you drop the tailbone down towards your heels, like your root system is down there, and at the same time, lift with the crown of your skull. You got this whole sense of the channel of your body. Now, using the Ujjayi breath, inhale your hands down, wide, and up. Please look up. Exhale, come down to chair pose. Okay, inhale, rise up from chair pose. And exhale, bow forward to Uttanasana. Using the length of your exhale, inhale, glide your heart forward. Ardha Uttanasana, look forward. Exhale for a deep bow towards your legs. Inhale to rise up. Energize your legs. Look up at the top of the movement. And exhale back to your heart. Continuing, inhale. Exhale. Chair pose, Utkatasana. Inhale, upward hands, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, rise up, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Anjali Mudra. Now we're going to add to the sequence. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Utkatasana. Inhale, Urdhva Hastasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, left toes back. Inhale, crescent lunge, Chandrasana. Exhale, open the arms out to a T-shape, palms face up. Inhale, float your arms up again. And exhale, sweep the arms wide, come back down to the base of your lunge pose. Inhale, step forward, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, glide forward. Exhale, right toes back. Inhale to rise. Crescent pose, Chandrasana. Exhale, open the arms wide like the letter T. Inhale, raise up. And exhale, sweep wide as you come forward and down. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, Anjali Mudra. Continuing straight away. Inhale, listen for the sound of the Ujjayi in the inner ear. Exhale, Utkatasana. Inhale, rise up, Urdhva Hastasana. Uttanasana. Ardha Uttanasana. Left toes back. Chandrasana. Arms wide. Arms up. Forward and down. Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Right toes back. Inhale to rise. Exhale, open. Inhale, rise. Exhale, descend. And this time we're going to inhale and step backwards to downward dog pose. And relative to where we've been, downward dog is a resting pose. So keep the Ujjayi breath smooth. And as you next inhale, roll forward to plank pose, gaze down between your thumbs. And then exhale, touch your knees lightly down, point the toes, and reach back for a moment to child's pose. This time in child's pose, walk your hands forward to the far edge of the block. And keep your head resting up between your arms versus on the floor. Notice the breath coming into the back hemisphere of your body, especially on the inhale. Can you sense that expanse, almost like from the tailbone to the sacrum, across your back body, up into your heart? And during the exhale, you can play with the tone of the lower belly to help facilitate a more complete exhale. And then walk your hands back towards your knees and come up to Vajrasana, up to kneeling for a moment. So you can find your place there. It's kind of expedited to come to kneeling versus going back to sitting, but if you need to sit, of course, you can do that. Drop in and check now. A research scientist has to keep checking the little micro changes, right? But what's happening? Okay, so we're going to start adding in some work with Cobra Pose, and I want to talk about that for a moment first because it's going to require some upper body strength, and I'd like you to be really thoughtful about your upper body strength. So when we're doing this, we're going to use the two blocks to help with seal pose because you'll have longer arms, you can get the chest to lift up a little bit more effectively. There's a sense of space for your body. It tends to be easier on the lower back. And then we're going to go down to Cobra Pose, which means we'll be bending the elbows. We're going to be coming through. We want the shoulders to move back as we come down. And for a lot of people, they don't do push-ups or, it's kind of fallen out of the habit. Now that we have lots of exercise programs around, people aren't just doing push-ups at home so often. But when people do a push-up, they tend to go down with the shoulder forward and the elbow up when they push up from their push-up. Here, we're going to be coming down into Cobra Pose. So it's the shoulders will stay back, actually. They're not going to fall forward in that position. They're going to stay back. So if we place ourselves, so you can have your hands, let's put the index fingers out and the thumbs on the insides of the blocks. And roll your knees a little bit down and your hips forward. And then just play with where is the place for you to be in your seal pose, where you've got two straight arms. Set the shoulders back, tone your legs, of course, and lift up through your heart. Yeah, I'm looking at you on my other monitor over here in the mirror. So breathe in. And then try this out. As you exhale, can you slide the shoulders back and the heart forward? And you come down into this variation of Cobra Pose that you can also press back up from. Okay, so try that again where you can glide down. I gotta see you over here now. You can glide down and the shoulders go back. And you don't go down farther than you can come back up from. Then you push yourself back up before you've gone too low, like before you sense that your strength doesn't hold. And that might be like a little micro movement down and then back up. It might not be very deep yet. Okay, yeah, good. So if we decide that we have to get somewhere with the thinking mind, that's kind of like pitta. I have to get to the whole Cobra Pose. But if we sense where we're going from the inside, if we use our interoceptive relationship with the body, then we're going down towards Cobra and coming back up from there with the Kapha dosha as our guide. It's like having a tour guide that's giving you the time to explore what's in the region where you're touring versus a tour guide that's trying to get you to the destinations, in a hurry. So let's check it out in the flow of the sun salutation. Place your hands on your blocks. Curl your toes under. Raise your hips and reach back to downward dog pose. Okay, let's inhale forward to plank pose. Gaze down between your thumbs when you get there. Step over one foot to point the toes, then step over the other foot to point the toes. Now inhale up in your seal pose. And exhale, glide forward with your heart, gaze forward. And coming down to cobra. And then inhale to go back up to seal. Exhale to plank. Inhale, downward dog pose. Okay, inhale, plank pose. Exhale, come into the foundation of your seal pose. And inhale, reach up in your seal pose. Exhale, cobra, shoulders back, heart forward. And then inhale, rise up. Exhale, plank. And inhale, downward dog pose. Notice that downward dog is a resting pose in relationship to the other poses. Okay, step forward. Second foot. And Uttanasana. And then rise up, upward hands pose. And hands to the heart. Now, even though we just did a little bit of that, let's let the arms dangle and check and see what's happening from the heart to your hands. What can you notice? Okay, and we're going to take that into Surya Namaskar. So there'll be a full sequence this time. And you can imagine for some of your students, those of you who are teachers in training or who are teachers, and when you have new students, beginning students, for some of them, it's going to be a complicated thing to put all that together. And you might have put pieces like I did the first 3 poses. Okay, then we added a pose like this. We add something, we break it down, we give them a chance to take in the information, all the while developing this internal sensing, this sensing that is so vital to our lives. We are unique as a species that we can sense the internal landscape of our experience. So let's not squander that opportunity. Please step forward. Let's come into the Ujjayi breath. Now inhaling, down, wide, and up. Utkatasana. Urdhva-hastasana. Uttanasana. Ardha Uttanasana. Left toes back. Chandrasana. Opening. Rising. Descending. Downward dog pose. Exhale, gazing back between the toes. Inhale, plank. Exhale, transition over your feet. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, cobra. Inhale, seal pose. Exhale, plank. Inhale, downward dog. Okay, exhale, left foot forward. Inhale, Chandrasana. Exhale, open. Inhale, rising. Exhale, descending. Inhale, forward. Uttanasana. Rise up. And exhale to the heart. And then listen inside again for how you just encouraged a nourishing pattern with prana. I'll take that blanket that I had you get before and place your blanket to support your knees. So it's going to be padding for one knee at a time. And you decide how thick you want that based on your own needs. Okay, and step the right foot forward, left foot back. Come down to the base of Anjaneyasana. Now in this base, it's okay to have your knee, the knee on the front foot is in line with the toes of the front foot. So there is a little bit of that. Of course, sometimes we don't do it that way. We have the shin vertical and the knee doesn't come forward. But you can try that on. Sometimes it's helpful for your ankle flexibility. Sometimes it exploits your ankle flexibility. Sometimes it's too much flexion for the knee, so you get to decide for yourself. But I do want you to have permission for your hips to come down towards your right heel, but not sagging, not like in a lax way. So press lightly into your fingertips and lift the inner belly. So there's a sense of tone that's important in this yoga pose. It's not a lax yoga pose. Your Ujjayi breath can help you with that tone. So if you just keep it really consistently moving with the pause at the top of the inhale and the bottom of the exhale, you'll have the tone that you need. Notice the sensations, just like moment to moment. There is an ever unfolding experience in the body. Walk your hands a little bit forward and bow over the right thigh. So your torso is mostly upright, but a little forward. And now with your little submarine inside, I'm going to ask you to ask of yourself, what would it take to bend your left foot up toward the ceiling without moving your hips backwards? What's going to be required of you right there? Okay, and then you can touch your left toe down. Walk your hands back. Okay, bring your hips back. This is one way to release. You can put the blocks on the inside, step the right knee down, move the blocks over, step the left foot forward, put the left block back, and then come into the second side. That's just one option that I came up with when in the early years of teaching, I was much younger and my students were older than me. Many people were older than me then. Now, not as much because I'm older, but they didn't have good transition skills for these things. So I would just jump from one Anjaneyasana to the other Anjaneyasana. I would leap. But they had to have a method. So that's a method that you could try on if you need it. Okay, so breathing with the Ujjayi. Press into your fingertips. So there is just enough tone, not tightness, but tone. You can explore into your right hip flexors. And let the torso come over your left thigh. So you're kind of in contact with the left thigh. The reason for this adjustment is that I don't want your lower back to be in extension right now, but rather to be kind of neutral. And then without your hips backing up, ask yourself inside with your little submarine, what does it take to pick up the right foot? And what does it take to hold up the right foot? Where does that come from? And then exhale and touch your right toes down. And you can walk your blocks back, walk your hips back, and blocks to the inside, and come down to kneeling. Okay. So what does it take to pick up the back foot there? You might have a couple hunches about your own experience, but since we're in this kind of format where we're online, let me talk about some of the components of that. One thing is when you pick up your foot, you're going to use your hamstrings, and hopefully you can also find your glute muscles on that same leg. You're picking it up like the way that I'm going to bend my elbow right now using my bicep, and then eventually I use some of my shoulder muscles right here. So you need your hamstrings and your glutes to do that. However, the antagonistic muscles to those muscles might be resisting. So your hip flexors, mostly they are your hip flexors. You might feel it's in your quadriceps, which could be the case, except that your knee is not that bent yet. So you're really looking at hip flexor resistance. That would be your rectus femoris, the one quadricep that comes up to the hips. The other three quadriceps just stay on the thigh. It could be your rectus femoris, could be your iliacus or your psoas. You could have resistance from your sartorius, which comes up to the outer hip, crosses your leg, and attaches at the upper inner part of the shin here. You might even have resistance from your most lateral hip flexor, the TFL, tensor fascia lata, which becomes your IT band to the outside of your shin here. So you could have a lot of resistance on the front of your thigh, and you might not have a feeling of strength or connection with the muscles on the back of the thigh, the hamstrings, or with the glutes. So what's required musculo-skeletally is to strengthen the muscles that actually pick up your foot and to lengthen the muscles that would inhibit that action from happening. What's also required is a sense of connection from your mind down into your body with your breath to get there and to pick up the foot. Like if we've had an injury of some sort, or like I've had the chance to have a couple of car accidents in my life as a passenger, just making note of that and put it in the comments below the video. I wasn't driving. Not that my drivers were poor drivers, just that things happened. And along the way, that required major hip surgeries. Well, after each surgery, to be able to connect to the foot neuromuscularly, like neurologically and muscularly, it had to be rebuilt. The groove had to be rebuilt. And this kind of reworking process that we're doing, though it's musculoskeletal, is the same template you can use for your life when you have to rebuild a skill for novelty or playfulness or courage or commitment. When you got to get some skills built back up, you ask, what's needed to strengthen the skill? What's the resistance on the skill? And can I connect my mind to that skill, however distant it might seem from the present moment, however distant my longing is, can I connect to that? So we're going to stretch the quads and hip flexors and see if reducing resistance makes that experience easier. But now that you got these kind of sub notes from me, let's check that pose one more time and see what you can assess for any restriction you have here. And then we will see after we stretch the quadriceps. So put your right foot forward and come down into your hip flexor stretch. Pad your knee as much as you need to. It should not feel like it's uncomfortable on your kneecap. So please take care of yourself in that way. We want the torso to be in flexion, so walk your blocks a little bit forward. And let the torso come over your front thigh so that as you bend your left knee, your butt is not moving backwards. Butt moving backwards is a symptom of tight hip flexors, so don't move your butt backwards. In fact, squeeze your left butt muscle. Use your left hamstring. If you're getting a cramp in your hamstring, then that means very, very terrible things. I'm just kidding. Go ahead and step back and change sides. If you're getting a cramp in your hamstring, it means that your hamstring is not as strong as your front leg muscles are tight. So it's relational. It means the hamstring is not as strong as the other muscles are tight. Okay, try the other side, please. So initially you might feel your hip flexors stretching and arrange your kneecaps so you know it's not going to be uncomfortable. Let the torso come over your left thigh, walk your blocks a little forward. And ask yourself, what is it going to take to pick up your right foot? Squeeze your right butt muscle. Keep breathing, sensing, respecting. Okay, and then let's touch that down. Now you have a little a second preview. You're a scientist, so that's part of your study. That was your second preview. Now you can use the blanket to pad in any way that you want to. I'm going to open mine up. Let me ask you guys how shall I do this for you? I don't know how many yoga props you have, so I'm going to use 2 blocks for this process. So for people who cannot sit all the way down, hips to heels, then you can fold a blanket to put under your pelvis, and that's going to go between your feet, so you're sitting on it. And then you're going to have the 2 blocks. Okay, so 1 block here is going to be for the shoulder blades, and 1 block is going to be for the head. Right? So I'm going to sit so that let's do the side you can see, my right foot is in position. So if you can't sit all the way down, then you're going to be sitting up on a blanket, and that'll be under both sitting bones. If you can sit all the way down, you get to enjoy that. And when you lie backwards, you want the block for the shoulder blades and the block for the head. And now some of you are already like, oh my gosh, my quadricep is stretching so much. What about those hip flexors? Okay, so press your right shin down and lift your hips up slightly until you can lengthen your tailbone towards your right knee. So that if the hips drop down, that's fine. It's a nice quadricep stretch. But I would like you instead to be reaching into your hip flexors. So lift the hips up so that you have this line from the tailbone towards your right knee. And you're opening right through here. In fact, you can give it some love if you need to. My cat is climbing behind the camera right now. The risk of him pulling everything down exists. I'm just letting you know. If this all falls apart, you just stay with your hip flexors until I put it back together. Okay, if you are enjoying, you can also take the arms overhead. That's going to give you another way to feel into. If you hold your right wrist with your left hand, you might feel into your right hip flexors even more, because now you're including the upper torso. So you've got parts of your psoas muscle getting involved right there. Yeah, he just tipped the camera. So now the room looks crooked. It looks like Alice in Wonderland. There's a bird outside. That's why he's doing that. Okay, let's release and come up to sit. Release your right foot. We'll change sides, but I'm going to get the camera and I'm going to get the cat also. Yeah, let's go with that. Okay, so second side on your hip flexors. Sorry to miss you on this one. I'll just join you for a moment because it's, oh so delicious. Don't forget that you raise the hips. You don't just keep the pelvis down on the blanket or on the floor. We want to be able to feel into the hip flexors, not only the quadriceps. So that means you're pressing into your right heel to support your hips to be up. If you haven't remembered to, or you just forgot momentarily, let's take the left arm overhead. Hold your left wrist with your right hand. The reason that the rib cage is up on blocks is that if your psoas is a part of why your hip flexors are tight, we don't want your upper torso trying to lie back farther than your psoas can allow for. And then you would have like a crimp in your lower back form of compensation. And it might be hard to find the hip flexors or the psoas in that case. So we've elevated the rib cage and the head so we can actually access the psoas in this position. Or perhaps we can say so that it doesn't disturb us in this position also. So go ahead and release your arms and then step your left foot out and rise up. Okay, let's check our experiment as we are scientists. You're going to put your 2 blocks at the front of your mat. If you had padding for your knees that you benefited from, go ahead and fold that again. So just for those of you who love birds, I'll say that these cats don't go outside. They don't get to chase birds. They are indoor only cats now that the neighborhood has changed. So there's more birds, but there's more coyotes. So I don't put them, they don't get to go outside. Okay, take your right knee forward, right foot forward, excuse me. And come in. Walk the blocks a little forward. So the spine is not in extension. It's kind of neutral, a little bit rounded right here like child's pose. And then you can bend your left foot up. Okay, without any swiveling or knocking about of the hips or the pelvis. You might be able to reach your left foot with your right hand. So notice that when I reach for my left foot with my right hand, the moving part is my right arm. It's not the rest of the body. It's not like there's chaos everywhere else to reach back to take that. Now, if you are holding on to your foot with your hand, roll your shoulder back, lift your chest, lift your heart. The cat came back, you guys. You push the door open. Okay, you may lift up a little bit more. Enjoy the right shoulder opening and press your left foot into your right hand. Anyone who can keep their balance may raise the left arm. And then release your left hand back down. Release the right fingertips. Your left foot should not feel like it's crashing back to the floor out of some fatigue or, that would be like a sign that you are overdoing it. If your left foot is like clunk back down, like you went past the threshold, your submarine was going out of control. Okay, let's put the left foot forward. As you come forward, collect your thoughts so you're in your submarine, you're not thrashing about in the water. So the back is neutral here, and then you can ask, what's it going to take to bend the right knee? And as your right foot comes up, it's just that the left arm glides back and holds the foot. It's not that you turn every other thing in the body. We're not swiveling around, yanking on body parts to get into position. And you can press your right foot into your left hand. Come up to your right fingertips. Press your right foot back into your hand to roll the left shoulder open. If you have your balance, you can raise the right arm. The hips are still down and forward, so the butt is not backing up here. This is not a quadricep stretch. I mean, you might stretch your quadriceps, but it's really a whole body experience. And the muscle that I would hope you're stretching on your right leg, those are your hip flexors, not your quadriceps in this case. Okay, release if you haven't yet. I see some smiles. Some have fallen over. It's okay. Yeah, so bit by bit, we understand how the body works from the outer body, but also really helpful to understand it in the inner body. Right, so with this, let's put the 2 blocks, let's set the blanket aside, put 2 blocks on your mat so you can lie down between them. Okay. When you lie back, place yourself so that your blocks are within reach. And then we're going to take these 2 blocks like the letter V, upside down V like this. And they're going to go under the back of the pelvis. So each block is going to go on the side of the sacrum so that your sacrum is going to float between the 2 blocks. So right side, left side. So the blocks are on a diagonal. And they're going to support your hips in bridge pose. Now in this bridge pose, energize your feet, your legs, go ahead and use them. Lengthen your tailbone towards your knees. And then tuck each shoulder under so we go back to the opening of the chest at the front of class, the beginning of class. Lay the arms down. And take your gaze in towards your heart. Now this pose, relative to where we've been, is a more grounding and inward pose. We'd say it's more tamasic. But if we were coming from Shavasana or from our sick bed, this would be a Rajasic pose. It would require so much of us. But right now it brings things together from the whole sequence of class. So press down into your heels and your shoulders. Energize your shoulder blades and then energize your butt, your glutes. Lift up using the tone of the butt muscles as well as your hamstrings. Keep the shoulders strong and the breath consistent. And then exhale and touch your hips back to those 2 blocks. Keep the shoulders active. Bend your right knee in and take it straight up. Now, if the hamstring is tight on your left leg, then you can bend your knee. And the left knee in and take it up. This is called candlestick pose. And keep the shoulder blades and the shoulders only moderately active, not fiercely active. This is a helpful pose for the lymph system, so it's a good springtime pose. It also opens the chest and the lungs. You could consider pointing and flexing your feet as a way to further inspire your lymph system for some cleansing here in Kapha season. And then bend your knees when you're ready to and touch the toes down. Pick up your hips, please. Take the 2 blocks, place them on the flat setting, and keep them in their V shape. Now when you come down, I'd like these 2 blocks to be wide enough that when you pick up your thighs and knees and feet, you're actually resting. The block is right behind the greater trochanter. So it's between, the greater trochanter is that bony thing on the outside of your thigh. Greater trochanters are right here. You're between that bony landmark and the sacrum, about halfway. And if you go a little side to side, you can feel like, oh, that's kind of painful or tender, right? So there you are. And then drop your knees towards their own shoulders. That means that you're massaging some muscles across the back of the pelvis. And then take your knees up towards the ceiling. Just the knees, not the feet. And then knees towards the shoulders. Notice the shape of the spine there. And take your knees up towards the ceiling. The spine does not go into extension, it stays in flexion. And the knees in towards the shoulders again. And then we'll stay knees to armpits, we can say. So right now the sacrum is still not touching the ground. Let your submarine mind go inside. And you can ask again in the inner body, anything that your body's wisdom wants you to know in terms of like something you might need to update or recalibrate in your life. And we'll transition to Shavasana. Just go ahead and shift your hips to the floor, set your blocks aside, and come into Shavasana, please. I set my camera turned off, so I turned it off. Your eyes are closed, so you don't need to see it. We're going to rest in Shavasana. And I'll turn the camera back on before the end of Shavasana. And for the time being, come down into a very earnest commitment to rest your mind while you're resting your body. Rest your mind while you're resting your body. So as much as Kapha dosha in the spring feels like, oh my gosh, excited, creative, generative, right now we want to rest the mind because your pitta mind can really run away with you. Imagine gifting your mind with really profound opportunity to be restful. Nothing to do, nothing to undo right now. Nothing to want, nothing missing. Not right now seeking, and not right now grasping. Not right now resisting. Not right now reacting. Simply resting. Allow yourself to deeply rest at every level. Begin to gently wiggle your toes and your fingers. And you can bend one knee at a time. Maybe rest your hands on your lower belly, or one on the abdomen, one on the heart. Notice the overall balance of prana in your body right now. And please make a turn to your side on your way back up to sitting. And come up to a seat that is comfortable for you for a couple minutes of meditation. Rest your hands in your lap once again. And encourage your mind to be very still. Okay, so this is not a time for thinking or planning. Really a time for realizing or recognizing. Please raise your hand to your heart. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. Hey, thanks for sharing your practice. And before you go, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. That gives us information about what we're providing and how we can help you further. Have a wonderful day. Please take care of yourselves.